In the mountain villages of Korea and Japan, there is a plant that smells of anise, cinnamon, and something almost medicinal, a scent older than memory itself. A 2015 analysis published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry confirmed that perilla seed oil contains up to 64% alpha-linolenic acid, the highest plant-based omega-3 concentration ever recorded in a food crop. That figure exceeds flaxseed, chia, and hemp combined in usable concentration per seed mass. For over 2,000 years, East Asian civilizations built entire culinary and medicinal traditions around this single plant, long before the Western world understood what an essential fatty acid was. History has a habit of burying its most inconvenient truths beneath convenience. And then came 1942. The plant is Perilla frutescens, known as Shiso in Japan, Kkaennip in Korea, and Tia To in Vietnam. It grows wild across the Himalayan foothills, along Korean riverbanks, and through the temperate forests of central China. It has fed emperors and monks. It has preserved food without refrigeration. It has survived ice ages and wars, and the full weight of industrial agriculture pressing down upon it. But in much of the world, it simply vanished, erased not by failure, but by timing. There is one fact about this plant that most botanists don't mention in textbooks. That silence tells its own story. Perilla frutescens appears in Chinese botanical records as far back as 500 BCE, referenced in the Shennong Bencao Jing, one of the oldest known herbals in the world. The text described it as a plant of remarkable versatility, grown for its seeds, its leaves, and the deep violet pigment extracted from its stems. In feudal Japan, shiso leaves were not a garnish. They were a preservation technology. Packed with natural antimicrobial compounds called rosmarinic acid and luteolin, the leaves were wrapped around fish and meat to slow bacterial growth before the age of ice. This was not folk medicine. This was functional science, practiced centuries before microbiology had a name. Korean records from the Joseon Dynasty document perilla oil as a primary cooking fat, used in households where sesame was too expensive to maintain. It was the oil of the common farmer, the oil of the real kitchen. In the Himalayan foothills, Tibetan communities harvested perilla seeds as a caloric staple during winter, pressing them for oil that burned clean in lamps and enriched thin mountain diets. The plant asked for almost nothing in return. Rocky soil, minimal water, a slope nobody else wanted. It was the ultimate survivor crop. And yet, the 20th century had no patience for plants that couldn't be industrialized. The perilla genome contains over 250 identified secondary metabolites. Modern agriculture recognized perhaps 3 of them as commercially useful. The rest were simply ignored. Alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA, is the essential omega-3 fatty acid that the human body cannot synthesize on its own. It must come from food. And for centuries across East Asia, it came primarily from perilla. A 2018 study in Nutrients found that perilla seed oil possesses a ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids of approximately 4:1, a balance that nutritional researchers now consider nearly ideal for reducing systemic inflammation. By comparison, modern soybean oil carries a ratio closer to 1:7, the inverse of what the human body evolved to process. This inversion is not accidental. It is agricultural policy solidified into cooking fat. Perilla also contains rosmarinic acid, at concentrations significantly higher than rosemary itself, the plant its name derives from. Research published in Phytotherapy. Research has documented rosmarinic acid's antioxidant capacity as exceeding that of vitamin E in certain cell models. The leaves carry luteolin, apigenin, and chrysoaryl, a group of flavonoids studied for their anti-inflammatory properties across more than 40 peer-reviewed papers since 2000. None of this chemistry was discovered recently. It was documented in Chinese imperial pharmacopoeias in the 16th century. The Bencao Jing, compiled by Li Shizhen in 1596, dedicated multiple entries to Perilla's oil, seeds, and leaves as distinct botanical medicines. Western science rediscovered these compounds in the 1990s and called it cutting-edge research. It was not cutting-edge, it was archaeology. The distinction is economic, not scientific. The year 1942 marks a precise rupture in Perilla's global story. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States government banned the cultivation of Perilla across its territories. The plant was classified alongside hemp as a potential source of industrial oil that could be diverted to support enemy nations. The logic was wartime. The consequences were permanent. Japanese-American farming communities, who had cultivated Shiso in California and Hawaii for decades, were forced to abandon their fields alongside their homes during the forced internment of 1942. Seeds were not saved. Knowledge was not transferred. The chain broke. In Europe, Perilla had never gained agricultural traction. Its cold sensitivity at early growth stages made it a difficult fit for northern climates. So when the war ended and agricultural reconstruction began, Perilla was not on any nation's rebuilding list. Soybeans were, corn was, sunflower was. Plants that grew fast, processed clean, and integrated seamlessly into mechanized supply chains received investment, research, and policy protection. Perilla received nothing. The plant that once produced the richest omega-3 oil on the continent was replaced by crops designed for yield, not nutrition. What was lost was not only a crop, it was a metabolic heritage. History rarely announces its thefts. It simply stops mentioning what it has taken. Perilla frutescens is an annual member of the Lamiaceae family, the same botanical family as basil, mint, and lavender. It germinates rapidly in warm soil, typically reaching mature leaf production within 60 days of planting. The plant expresses remarkable phenotypic diversity. Green-leafed varieties dominate East Asian culinary traditions. Deep purple varieties, rich in anthocyanins, were historically prized for pigment and preservation. A single Perilla plant can produce between 500 and 2,000 seeds depending on growing conditions, making it among the most productive oilseed crops per square meter in temperate agriculture. It is drought-tolerant once established, requires no fertilization on moderately fertile soil, and naturally repels certain insect pests through its volatile aromatic compounds. In Korean traditional agriculture, Perilla was interplanted with sesame as a companion crop, the aromatic oils from its leaves deterring aphids without chemical intervention. This is companion planting backed by phytochemical reality, not gardening mythology. The seeds retain viable germination rates for up to 3 years when stored in cool, dry conditions. The plant self-seeds aggressively in favorable climates, meaning a single season of cultivation can establish a perennial seeming presence in the garden. It does not need to be tamed. It needs only to be allowed. Modern seed banks in Japan, South Korea, and China currently preserve over 300 distinct cultivars of Perilla frutescens. Most Western gardeners have encountered perhaps one. The rest remain locked in government vaults, unadvertised and uncelebrated. In Japan, red Perilla, known as akajiso, produces the crimson pigment that gives umeboshi plums their color and preserves them for years without refrigeration. This is not a culinary trick, it is applied antimicrobial botany. The anthocyanins in red Perilla leaves create a pH-responsive pigment system that actively inhibits mold and bacterial growth in acidic environments. A 2020 study in food chemistry confirmed that Perilla anthocyanin extracts demonstrated significant antimicrobial activity against E. coli and Staphylococcus aureus. For centuries, Japanese households understood this empirically. Science confirmed it formally, 3,000 years later. Green shiso, aojiso, became the standard leaf served with sashimi, not for decoration, but for function. Its antimicrobial properties provided a natural barrier between raw fish and contamination. The practice predates refrigeration by more than a millennium. In Vietnam, tia tu appears in traditional soups as both a flavoring agent and a preservation component, the same underlying chemistry, expressed in a different culinary language. Across Korea, Kkaennip leaves were fermented with soy paste and chili to produce a banchan that stored through winter without spoilage. These are not coincidences. They are convergent discoveries of the same botanical truth. Humans across 3 distinct cultures independently identified the same plant's preservation properties and built food traditions around them. Industrial food science replaced all of it with synthetic preservatives discovered in the 1950s. The patent system found the latter more legible than 10,000 years of fermented leaves. In the mid-20th century, as the global edible oil industry consolidated around soy, corn, and palm, several smaller regional oils were systematically excluded from international trade infrastructure. Perilla seed oil was among them. The oil requires cold pressing for maximum nutritional integrity, a process slower and more expensive than the high-heat solvent extraction used for industrial soybean and corn oils. Cold-pressed perilla oil oxidizes relatively quickly. Its high ALA content, the very property that makes it nutritionally exceptional, also makes it chemically unstable at room temperature without careful packaging. Industrial supply chains in the 1950s and 1960s were not designed for oils requiring refrigeration and rapid turnover. They were designed for oils that could sit in warehouse conditions for 18 months without visible degradation. Perilla oil could not compete on those terms, so it was never offered the chance. Today, cold-pressed perilla oil is available in specialty stores across Japan and South Korea, sold in small, dark bottles at prices that reflect its careful production. Meanwhile, the omega-3 supplement industry generates over $30 billion annually, largely selling fish oil derived from wild-caught marine stocks under increasing ecological pressure. The market chose what was scalable, not what was optimal. These are not the same thing. Perilla frutescens still grows wild across mountain slopes in Yunnan, along the Han River Basin in Korea, and through temple gardens in Kyoto, where monks have tended the same seed lineage for 400 years. In the decade since 2015, South Korean agricultural universities have launched formal breeding programs to develop perilla cultivars optimized for cold-press oil production at commercial scale. The plant, this is the seed, what change, the plant, that is it.